Yes,
Monoblue.
so Monoblue tempo first. The idea behind this deck is controlling opponent's Faeria wells and then just killing him. Main creature for every tempo deck in Faeria is fairies. Fairies are really great right now. Gemsilk Fairy is one of my favorites. I think green and blue fairies are two of the best ones. So with Gemsilk Fairy, so much mobility, it's easy to harvest with this guy, and it also requires two times. You need to hit it 2 times for opponent to kill it. In combination with Lord Thief, it's quite nice since you can just play Fairy on turn 2 and play Lord Thief to draw 2 cards. Then another thing, if you're playing blue, always play Ninja Toad. That's the great card. So reasons to play blue are Ninja Toad and Aurora Mythmaker. If you're playing any blue deck, you should have them. Then Battletoads. The card seems deceptively simple because 4 Fairy for 2/2 frogs seems nothing to scoff at, but when you play it on turn 2, on turn 3 you can actually gather 2 Faeria for those frogs. And the fact that they can jump in combination with Shifting Tide, opponents will have really time dealing with those toads. It's a really great card, and I usually would want to add it to my deck. Plus it has good combination with Gemsilk Fairy. Lord Thief probably should be a 3-off, I'm not really sure. I'm still kinda messing around with this deck. Falcon Dive seems pretty questionable, but the more people play, the more they will evaluate the Fairy wells. So they will play more Harvesters, and Harvesters usually have low health. So for 1 Faeria, you kill his Harvester, and it costs you only 1 Fairy and one card. Sounds a good deal for me, and I usually would want to play Falcon Dive in my any of my tempo decks. I actually have green blue tempo deck. I can also show that, but that's not actually mine. That's the number from player ranked 2. I didn't see his exact deck lists. I just reverse engineered it, so 1 card is questionable, but otherwise. Spellwell is here the most random card because it gives you 2 random cards, and I really dislike the card itself, but the effect is usually good enough for the card's worth inclusion. Now, the main reason to actually be Monoblue is Aurora's Trick. If opponents play fairies, or if they play just cheap creatures, Aurora's Trick just demolishes them. Also, keep in mind that instead of costing 4 Faeria, it usually costs only 3, because if it steals opponent's creature that is near the Faeria well, it can actually harvest. There are some conditions, so if it's just came into play, it will not, but if it was more than 1 turn in play, then the creature you stole with Aurora's Trick will immediately harvest. I think that's a bug, but you should keep it in mind. Freedom Fighter, good neutral minion and creature, sorry. So you should be playing him, but I'm not that excited about him. I mean, 5 mana, 3/3 vanilla, and you already have Ninja Toad. But the fact that it does not require any lakes makes him really good. And Mirror Phantasm, one of the best cards in this deck. I mean, if opponent plays big taunts, Mirror Phantasm is the only creature you can deal with them. I normally play 3 Unbound Evolutions, but after getting burned by them so many times, I mean, they're just trolling me, because when I do them on my creatures, I get something like 0/8 Giants or something useless. When I put them on opponent's creatures, he gets something like Shara the Dragon Slayer, and I just die to them. So the card is really questionable. It sounds good on paper, but in actual testing I disliked it really much for this deck. Gabriel Noble, well, great art is one of the reasons, but as you may have seen in my last game, opponent just played it and he got a harvester that just harvested 2 fairy wells whole game, which is really irritating and hard to deal with. Well, Mirror Phantasm is subbing yes and no. I mean, if I didn't have 3 Mirror Phantasms, I would have preferred to play 3 Unbound Evolutions or something else, because Frogify it's not really a tempo play. It's not removing the creature, but okay, yeah, it deals with big green creatures, so technically they're the same thing, but you shouldn't really be playing Frogify in this deck, since all your creatures die to frogs. Well, except of Gabriel Noble, all of your creatures die to frogs just as well as to any other green creature, which makes it kinda questionable. It's not killing anything, it just makes it more bearable, so I don't think it's good at substitution. Yak Attack is something, I think it's really nice for this deck, because usually what happens is you gain control over the Fairy Wells, but you have just so many small guys, and you want something reminding you of the win condition. So Yak Attack becomes really good at that point, because it can sometimes it just swings the game back in your favor when you gain control of some of the Fairy Wells. Sometimes it's not good, but usually it's worth the 9 Faeria, and because the deck is usually cheap, 9 Faeria is worth it. Main problem with this deck, as I said, are big creatures, big green creatures, and even some 3/5s and 3/8s might be hard to deal with. That's why you should really adjust it to the metagame. This deck was created a few days ago, so right now it's probably obsolete because metagame changes so fast and so much. And yeah, or say just forget about the card until they change it, because not worth it, no. On the other hand, the one card I should probably worth slot in this deck is Byro the First Wave. It can screw your opponent so much, because if he plays multiple colors and he doesn't kill it in time, he will never be able to recover from it. Byro is one of the best win conditions the game has to offer, so forget about the dragon and just play Byro. And for the cards that are core of the deck, it's basically so this is the core of the deck. I would actually add Lord Thief as another card to the core, and everything else you add is just based around that. You play these in blue tempo, and then you just add other cards depending on the metagame. If you see a lot of fairies, you add Falcon Dives. If you really see a lot of green, which you probably do right now, it's probably Unbound Evolution, as much as I hate the card. Then Byro is probably one of the better things to add here instead of the Yak Attack. And well, there is a case for adding third Aurora Streak, because when it's good, it's good. Snowstorm Lancer is one of the better creatures because it just can kill opponent really fast. One of the funny things about this deck is that you have, with Lord Thieves and Frogs, there are just situations where you play them and opponent can't deal anything with his creatures. He can have one big creature surrounded by frogs and 1/1s, and he can do nothing with it. So he's green, blue, or green, or even yellow. As long as he's not red, just spamming the board with small creatures, you get a lot of Faeria by board control, and then he won't be able to move his creatures, which makes him unable to do. Even if he plays big Runin's Avenger, it doesn't do, even 16/16 Runin's Avenger will do nothing against you if he can't move when he is surrounded by all the frogs. And yeah, so basically that's the something like this is probably nice for this deck. Maybe a bit more creatures for this metagame. I'm not really sure, but that's the general idea.